very much for agreeing to do this,
That's
because
quite
the whole
right.
reason we exit, because the whole reason we like to do these is to give, first of all, an opportunity for us to hear what you think about the service with us, but also
Yes.
most importantly, prospects thinking about using us get to hear direct from the people that matter.
Yeah,
which is
100%. Yeah. And I think like with Rob and the whole sort of process I went through, mine was a slightly unique sale because it was a leasehold and had a low lease on it, and we overcome those hurdles. So it's quite which would be probably quite good for you as well, wouldn't it? But
Yeah, fantastic. So it'd be great if you wouldn't mind sharing kind of how things started. So,
okay.
how you came across us, how you found the initial engagement with us, why you chose to use us.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No worries. I think initially, obviously, I did go online. There was no qualms about that. I started looking at because we were going to go for a traditional estate agent, which we did do early days. But prior to that, I did touch base with you guys, and I obviously checked out reviews and people's. As you would do, I think it makes complete sense. And they're not just reviews, as we know with certain companies, they're just spoofy reviews. You had TripAdvisor and you've got your Trustpilot, etc. I think it's Trustpilot I looked on. A majority, as I find with a lot of these reviews, is the high percentage is, if it's quite high, then you muddle out the other ones because there's always going to be the odd individual that isn't 100% happy. And words can be quite damaging. So I initially went Trustpilot, and then you guys initially referred me, and I did then you referred me to your solicitors that you use as well, and I did all that information, which I'm so glad that I did early days. We took it off the market for a short period of time, and then I recontacted you guys, and then put it back on the market. But because I'd already done all that information, provided you all that information, I didn't have to start all over again. And you had all the original images, you had all the photographs all taken, so that was a bit of a weight off my mind as well. So, and the nice thing is you didn't really tie me down and say, no, you started, so you're finished, you've got to sell it. It was like, look, our circumstances are slightly changed at the moment, and we need to take the foot off the gas. And restart in a few months' time, and you were very amicable when that was requested as well. So it was quite nice.
So we obviously were looking to get things started with you, but then you needed a 2-3 month delay.
Yeah. Circumstances slightly changed, so we just needed to take foot off the gas. But however, we just said we was realistic about if someone did suddenly jump out of the woodwork and say, no, I want to buy it tomorrow, then we'd then refresh and go, okay, plan B. But it worked out really well. So
And when you look back at the sort of service, whilst we were working on the property, when you look back at the service, were there any aspects of it that you particularly liked?
Yes.
Any people that you felt did a good job?
Yeah, I think the nice thing is it was all explained quite thoroughly about what the process was going to be. Obviously, I got assigned Rob, and I'd send him an email occasionally, and he'd respond pretty much normally within 24 hours, if not, within the hour. And then I got assigned, obviously, the conveyancing team, and then eventually went to the solicitors. But a lady called Amy, and then I think it's Charles. I think it was Charles, wasn't it?
Yeah.
He then contacted me on a regular basis. He would then, text me, and the nice thing is there was numerous options, because I'm aware that some people like to use email, some people like, especially in that sort of process, that perhaps like an official record of what's gone on. But then there was the odd WhatsApp message, there was a text message, and I was very much kept in the loop, really. And obviously a few things that popped up more to the latter end, not really understanding the whole process of selling a house, because I haven't sold a place for nearly 20 years, so I'm aware of the process slightly changed, and just getting my head around. Right, so what does that mean? Have we exchanged? Haven't we exchanged? Are we on the 11th hour? Is it all going to be rubber stamped tomorrow? What does time scale? And Charles was very good, and Robert then liaising with the buyer on a regular basis as well, because there's a few questions that popped up there. So we got pretty much the answers we needed quite very quickly around that side of it as well, because there were certain things. Do we want to keep this item? Do we not want to keep this item? Are we going to leave this? Are we going to leave that? And Rob was on it straight away, right up to the last day of the last minute of selling, so but
no, it's reassuring that because the most important part of the process is actually the communication.
Yes, 100%. Yeah,
And I
yeah.
think
And there was no, I think even, early days, I think I'd put a phone call into the office and it was, even other members of staff in the office said, Robert's not here at the moment. How can I help you? And then I think sometimes you end up getting people with false promises. I'm very much a person, if someone says they're going to phone me back by 4 o'clock, if that's not going to happen, at least have the courtesy of phoning me at 3 o'clock and saying,
yeah.
look, we're not going to meet your deadline, but that never arose. If someone said they was going to phone me back, I got a response of some sort. May not have got the full answer by 4 o'clock because circumstances may not have dictated that. However, I think it was really important, to have that communication, like you say, and that was very consistent throughout, other than on the last day, because there was no point someone phoning me to say there was no news. And I get that, but you appreciate, when you're exchanging keys on the final day, it's those final hours, isn't it? And eventually you see on the conveyancing website, shows you the email's gone from solicitor to our solicitor. You go, I know something's happened, but why hasn't anyone told me?
Yeah.
However, you understand that what's the point of phoning him just to say someone's just received an email, And so the responses I got were consistent. It was just me not knowing that final hurdle, that what you had to do or what. I just thought it was like a rubber stamp in the morning. You got a phone call. Yeah, it's all done. And it was like, no, you had to wait for that final. But
Okay.
that old
And I
tip,
guess 20 years since you last sold,
yeah,
it's
exactly.
it's
Yeah,
hard to
exactly.
remember that, I imagine.
Yeah,
But,
exactly. And that was the question. So I think my only, perhaps in future, it might be for people like me who haven't done it for such a long while, just perhaps an idiot's guide of what the process will look like. Because there's some people that have regularly sold, so they know the whole process and they've sold their house regularly. Where I was like, what does that actually mean? I think one of my questions to Charles was, I said, where do we get to the point of she can't gazump me? Because that's always in the back of your head. And he said, oh, no, that's when we do the final exchange. I said, oh, right. I thought that was when she agreed to price. And, it's me not really understanding. It's more my naivety rather than you guys. But, yeah.
And in terms of, you mentioned lease extension.
I think, yes, I was your client and you're trying to get the best price for me. However, the conversations with Rob weren't like, oh, no, you just got, let's just get rid of it. It's a quick sale. Don't really care. It was very much, no, I think this is what the market looks like at the moment. These are only hits you've had on line, but you've had but if you compare yourself to other properties, I know I sold it under, but I'm quite glad I did, because if not, I would have been fighting against slightly other properties were perhaps not as nicer. However, we ended up getting the right client and she was perfect because she was a cash buyer. So therefore then all the boxes were ticked. You didn't then, because I think we had one guy rock up and say, yeah, I can buy it. And then he had to get a bridging loan because obviously the lease. And then, it's like, why are these people even being, and you guys then screened everyone out. So we ended up getting the right person. Which is perfect. I think the lady that brought it there was 3 people to come to see me that particular day, and one lady lived round the corner, but I think they were just looking for an investment. And they never came back. And another lady was like, her husband was like, he was like kicking tires on a car type thing. He was moaning about everything. I said, mate, come on, really, you're not spending £1.5 million here. You've got to put some work into a property. So I think he wanted a lot more. He's been a bit
definitely
cheeky.
takes thought to make sure that it's about getting the best price, but matched to the right buyer that's actually going to follow through. Because there's no point in selling tomorrow if the buyer's then going to pull out.
Yeah, exactly,
a
because
month
everyone's
later.
wasted everyone's time, and then there's obviously money and time and effort. Yeah, exactly that, and then you're further down the line. Yeah, no, so it's all very realistic, as well as, it was, it ticked everyone's boxes. She's happy, she's got a bargain, so, and, we're happy because we ended up getting rid of getting rid of a property that we knew that if not, we'd have had to renew the lease ourselves, and that could take another 5-6 months and all that process. But so
I think the most important, a really important question that probably people watching this would be curious to know is if you were, if you kind of imagine you were at the beginning of the process watching a video like this, what could you imagine you would have wanted someone to have said about the service, how we work, what we do, that might have made the
Yeah,
difference to whether you'd consider us or not?
yeah. I think I'll be saying to people that I think you need to be realistic about what you want, and be honest. And then the conversation I had with Rob, etc., and then the honesty then came back as well to say, look, I think you've priced this too high for X, Y, and Z, or the market out currently at the moment is currently doing this, and this, because people just presume you just put a house on the market and suddenly it just gets sold, or because you may see properties down the road. Well, you don't know the circumstances of those properties. So I think there was honesty from day one, and then that's what drew me back straight to you guys anyway. There was a couple other companies that tried to intervene, shall we say, and make some very weird and spurious. We've got loads of buyers all over the world and that want to buy properties tomorrow, and we can buy your house within 48 hours. All this weird, wonderful, catch, try to draw you in, and then suddenly you read with small print, you go, well, that's just not realistic. That's just not, So I saw through them straight away on day one. But yeah, so it was a nice, honest conversation. The communication was spot on. And throughout the whole process, so there wasn't, I didn't feel like, oh yeah, fine, we put it on the market, we'll see what's happening. It was, we put it on the market and we're trying, we are actively, engaging with people, and we're, but however, you've got to price it right. And as soon as we did price it right, then we got the people come for the door. So again, it was that your guys' knowledge around that side of it.
No, absolutely. Lovely. And
Okay.
I mean, do you have any sort of questions for me, for us here, or anything else you want to
No. Just
add?
other than what I just said a few minutes ago, just perhaps for people that haven't sold their house for quite some time, perhaps it's a bit of an idiot's guide of what
Yeah.
what that process was going to, or what it is likely to look to. It's like stage 1, stage 2, those sort of final weeks of we've exchanged, right? The money's gone into our account, and I suppose in one way, because I probably didn't. The portal, they put me onto their portal, and if I'd have read, there was quite a few letters that went back and forth that I never got to see. There was obviously letters that I did see, but there was letters from the solicitors to their solicitors, and I was like sitting there going, what's in that? What's in that letter? So I'd be inquisitive, but when I got used to it, I could see the process. However, because I didn't quite understand what the process is, I didn't know what stage I was at. And then until Charles then phoned me, and I said, Charles, what's going on? He said, right, Lee, this happens. Don't worry, I've spoken to her, and okay, fine. Now I get it now. Right, okay, so we're on that. And I think it's just, it's that nervousness, isn't it? Like you say, someone could just pull out at one stage, and you hear horror stories. However, it's just that understanding of what that process was. But yeah, other than that, no,
100%.
it's not.
Yeah. It's why we always like looping back with buyers and sellers at the end of the process, like we did with yourself, so that we can get feedback as to what you liked, which obviously fantastic that, obviously a lot you have liked, but importantly areas we can improve or do differently.
But I think it's understanding what the whole world is all about now in the process. And I think, to be honest, I would, if I was really honest, probably at some stage during that process, Rob or Charles probably did explain it to me. But sometimes those conversations, whether I'm in the car or where he's caught me on the fly, so perhaps he did explain those processes to me, but I probably didn't listen at the exact time, if that makes sense. So,
Absolutely.
I wouldn't say they didn't do it. It's just that perhaps, I was like, oh, what's happening now? Right, okay, I'm going to put a phone call in and see what the process is. But yeah.
And any advice you would share with if you could go back in time at the start of the process, any advice you share about the selling process to your sort of past self?
I would just be really realistic about what you're actually selling. Be very honest with yourself as well, because like I said, you see a lot of property. I've seen properties back on on the market that you hear people, they say they've put them on the market, they're taking them off the market. I don't necessarily 100% agree with that. I think but then some people go, well, why is it still on the market? Is there something wrong with it? Is it a lemon or something like that? I get that. However, I just think if you've realistically priced it and you've fairly priced it, then a lot of people will acknowledge that, but like the quality of the photos and things like that, that was second to none as well compared to the photos we had done previously. Your guy had, done a much better job and marketed it just doing that visually as well. So that was, again, a good selling point. And and I think from my point of view, because it was a leasehold, it was, after the conversations with Rob and that, you guys vetted a lot more people, because I think early days we had the odd one or two individual that just wasn't, they weren't suitable. So what's the point of her even being entertained?
Exactly.
So again, it was just that little initial vetting your end of what we're aiming for, and we did. We ended up landing the perfect person, cash buyer and no chain. So we couldn't ask for more, really.
Fantastic. Honestly, thank you so much. Like these video interviews make such a difference. And actually, this is the first one that we've done live in this way. So,
okay, cool. Okay, no, that's perfect. To help. Yeah, definitely, and hopefully, just people can see. I think people are always slightly nervous about certain companies like this, that whole sort of process, and like I said, all it takes is one person to go on to Trustpilot and say, oh, they sold my house, they offered me 50% below the market value and things like that. You're going, well, I don't mean they did. They probably valued it at what the current market is. However, same as I could have said to Robert on day one, no, I don't want to sell it any more than that, and that's it. I'm not budgeting. And you guys would have gone, okay. However, we ended up having a few adult conversations as we moved forward, and in that sense, then we come up with what pitched just right. So and also because we went back to the lady and we upped the price. We did say to her, look, she came in the price we asked for, but when we went back to her and said, look, if you just add a few more grand, then it's yours. So again, that was a bonus
to buyer, which is
exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And it wasn't cheeky, and it wasn't like took the Mickey Air end either. So it worked out, just right.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah,
perfect.
And the solicitors you used, I'm guessing you use them regular. I can't remember the name of the firm.
Yeah, they're practically.
I just that whole process really. When I did that you're only selling that one property, and you have to understand she's probably selling hundreds of properties. So exactly, she's juggling lots of balls, and that final day she might be exchanging 10 properties that morning. So it's having an understanding of being realistic about that as well. But from day one, I think there's a couple of times I contacted them and Amy wasn't around, but the other member of staff was straight back to me. Got the response I needed. If I didn't, then Rob was straight on it. So, which is perfect.
Brilliant. Excellent. Perfect.
Okay.
Well, really appreciate it. Honestly, that's perfect.
Okay, good.
I'm so pleased we got the result that you wanted.
Yes, thank you.
And in the future, if you just because we've finished up, if things come up that you need our assistance with, then obviously always free to contact us.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.